Welcome to TV Recaps. Today I will be recapping a psychological thriller. An unspeakable tragedy creates a rift in a couple's marriage and opens the door for a mysterious and sinister girl to enter their home. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for our channel. Please sit tight and enjoy the recap of the TV show, Servant, Season 2. For recap of Season 1, refer to link in description. Oh, and of course, spoilers ahead. The season begins with Dorothy frantically searching for her infant son, Jericho, after noticing that both him and Leanne, the babysitter, are missing. Dorothy calls the police to report a kidnapping. She shows the police footage of Leanne's aunt, May Markham, who is also the leader of the cult, the Church of the Lesser Saints. Officer Reyes arrives and speaks to Sean, Dorothy's husband. She was the first responder on the scene when Jericho was found dead months ago. Julian, Dorothy's brother, and Natalie, Julian's girlfriend and kinesiologist, arrive to help. Natalie fabricates a cover story that Dorothy has convinced herself the reborn doll is her baby to suppress her trauma, and believes Jericho is missing because her mind finally rejected the doll. The officers leave, completely disregarding Dorothy's story. Next day, Sean inspects his severely burnt hand, still unable to feel pain, and finds, in Leanne's old room, a Bible with his name on a page titled The Test of Leprosy. Sean and Julian continue to suppress Dorothy's efforts to spread the story of Jericho's disappearance by discarding her missing persons posters. To stop Dorothy's search and the situation from escalating, Julian uses Jericho's shoe to send the Turners a fake ransom note. 4 days later, Roscoe, a private investigator hired by Julian, reappears, believing he only fell asleep for one night. Sean and Julian convince Natalie to hypnotize him, thinking his memories has been repressed by the cult. Under hypnosis, Roscoe recounts being taken to a room with his hands tied, and a man with a hook for a hand removing a baby's eyes. Julian is visibly shaken by the story but doubts its validity, claiming Roscoe was drugged. Meanwhile, Dorothy is called to stand in as a co-anchor for her network's evening news. She recites the news in a soft and soothing voice in the hope that Jericho is watching and ends the broadcast with a plea to viewers to help find the missing Leanne. Unexpectedly, Leanne calls Sean. She asks why Dorothy is looking for her and why he hasn't told Dorothy the truth about Jericho's death. As this happens, cracks ominously form in the basement floor and a small sinkhole opens up in the basement. After the broadcast, the public has sent the Turners a list of locations with possible sightings of Leanne. One of the reports leads them to a gated 9-bedroom mansion belonging to the Marino family. This raises Dorothy's suspicions, and they decide to investigate further. To get inside, the Turners create a fake pizza delivery service and leaves their delivery menu on the gate. The plan worked, and the Marino family places an order for 22 pizzas. Sean sends Toby, his assistant chef, as the delivery boy, with a hidden camera attached to him so the others could observe. In the house, Toby encounters Leanne, who is now a caregiver for the terminally ill homeowner. Leanne is shocked to see him. After Toby leaves, Leanne places an order for another pizza. Dorothy insists on making this pizza herself, claiming she wants to be involved. Toby returns with the second delivery, but this time joins her as she eats. Halfway through the pizza, Leanne suddenly collapses. Dorothy calls Toby, revealing that she secretly drugged the pizza, and orders him to bring the unconscious Leanne back home. Having kidnapped Leanne, Dorothy locks her in the attic of their house. She questions Leanne about Jericho's location, but Leanne pleads ignorance. Dorothy hides the attic key and forbids Sean from talking to Leanne in her absence. Dorothy begins waking up at exactly 2 a.m. every night in a panicked frenzy. Each time, she would physically abuse Leanne and demand she tells her where Jericho is. While Dorothy is at work, Sean finds the attic key and brings Leanne delicious food, attempting a softer approach to convince Leanne to return Jericho. Later at night, Leanne prays with the Bible, returned to her by Sean. During dinner, Sean's sense of taste miraculously returns. 2 a.m. arrives, but this time Leanne anticipates Dorothy's arrival, ambushes her from behind, and tries to escape. Dorothy corners Leanne at the front door, where Leanne claims that Jericho is kept in a safe place away from her. Enraged, Dorothy strikes Leanne unconscious. Suddenly, Sean is woken up by extreme pain in his burned hand as he is able to feel his hands again. With both Dorothy and Leanne missing, he frantically searches the house and finds Leanne buried alive in the basement sinkhole. Sean digs Leanne out and tells Dorothy that she has gone too far. In a flashback, 2 a.m. is revealed to be the time that Dorothy realized Jericho is missing from his crib and has been left to die in the car. Next morning, Leanne is given more freedom and allowed to walk freely inside the house at certain times of the day. A package arrives under Sean's name, containing a baby figurine and a ransom note for $200,000 to be delivered to Franklinville Mall tomorrow. The Turners manage to gather the ransom money and take it to the mall as instructed. Julian stays at home with Leanne. At the mall, no contact was made with the kidnappers, hours past the meeting time. This raises Julian's suspicions and he finds out that the baby figurine was ordered from Sean's laptop. Julian confronts Leanne, who admits to sending the fake ransom note to punish Dorothy. The Turners return home with an unexpected guest, George, Leanne's uncle. He confronted them at the mall and demands to know where they are keeping Leanne. Sean has a one-to-one conversation with George. He reveals that Leanne defied God's directive when she came to the Turners in the first place, which is why Jericho was taken, and explains that the only way to salvage the situation is to take Leanne back to the Marino family. In return, George promises to heal Sean's hand. As George is preparing a salve for Sean, Dorothy tries to hand him the ransom money. Instead, he dumps the money in the hole where Dorothy buried Leanne. He finds Leanne's hair and starts praying, suggesting that the house is crumbling due to her presence in the house. Sean tries to sneak Leanne out of the house but is stopped by a news report on gunfire at the Marino house. The bodies of the Marino couple have been found but their youngest son, Sergio, is still missing. Leanne locks herself in the attic and whips herself as punishment. She begins weaving straw crosses in the hope that it would save Sergio. The Turners receive a mysterious package addressed to George, which contains a Betamax tape, a note, and a dagger. Meanwhile, Leanne is shocked to learn that Sergio's body has been found and feels betrayed by God. Next day, George collects a bunch of flammable items and piles them up in the basement in preparation for some ritual. Dorothy confronts George, who reassures her that a reunion will take place during Christmas Eve. Sean's hand begins to heal after using George's salve. Meanwhile, Julian discovers that Leanne's family was killed in a house fire and approaches her to find out more. Leanne discloses that the fire which burned down the house was an accident caused by her. Julian also confesses that he is responsible for Jericho's death by ignoring Dorothy's calls when she needed his help. Bonding through shared trauma, they start having passionate sex. George looks for Leanne in the attic, armed with the dagger from the package. He stands menacingly over Leanne, who is asleep, but could not bring himself to harm her. Leanne wakes up and knocks over a candle, lighting up the attic. George sees Julian lying half-naked beside her and falls over in shock. George warns Leanne that someone other than May will be coming for her. Horrified, George runs out of the house only to be hit by a car while crossing the road. Christmas Eve arrives. Expecting Jericho to be returned, the Turners prepare for a family lunch and invites Frank, Dorothy's father, and his girlfriend. Leanne informs Dorothy that George left the night before, but she remains optimistic that he will bring Jericho back. Over the course of dinner, tensions rise as the Turners gradually realize that Jericho is not coming back. Leanne confronts Julian about their sexual encounter, hoping to continue their affair, but Julian turns her down. Stressed out, Julian starts drinking heavily and hides in the bathroom to snort drugs. He eventually overdoses and collapses. Sean tries to revive him but is unsuccessful. Dorothy looks at Julian's lifeless body in horror, triggering repressed memories from Jericho's death. Fortunately, Leanne arrives and, with a chest thrust and a kiss, miraculously brings Julian back to life. Julian is brought to the hospital by paramedics, while Frank follows in his car. After the guests depart, Leanne discovers that Dorothy had made a noose in the basement and is ready to die to be with her son. Someone knocks on the door. Sean opens the door to a woman wearing a veil, who introduces herself as Aunt Josephine. She speaks to Dorothy and gives her a baby onesie, the same one Jericho was wearing when he died. Convinced that her son is dead, Dorothy locks herself in Jericho's nursery. Josephine then lures Sean to another room, locking him inside before she confronts Leanne in the attic. Josephine plays the Betamax tape for Leanne, an instructive Church of Lesser Saints video on how to ritualistically purify members who have lost their way. The video is meant to be a final warning for Leanne. Josephine instructs Leanne to forget about Dorothy. She refuses, escapes to the basement, and prays for help. Suddenly, Sean's door swings open. He rushes to Jericho's nursery, where a despondent Dorothy is preparing to commit suicide, and successfully talks her down. In the basement, Josephine has found Leanne and attempts to purify her with a heated blade. Seconds from death, Dorothy knocks Josephine out with a shovel. After Dorothy leaves to find Sean, Josephine rises and attacks Leanne again. Leanne retaliates and stabs her in the eye. Dorothy returns with Sean only to find an empty basement. Moments later, the Turners find Leanne cradling and singing to Jericho in the nursery. Although Jericho has been safely returned to the Turners, war has been declared on the church with the killing of Aunt Josephine.
I know they're coming for me, but don't worry, I'll be ready.
The end. Please stay tuned for the next TV recap. Comment below on what you liked or disliked about our video. Thank you for watching.